Canada would be so much farther ahead now if it had done all it could to extract and refine fossil fuels and built pipelines and ports to ship them. That path could still prove lucrative. The alternative is continued economic stagnation. In 2016, the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau cancelled the Northern Gateway Pipeline project. The 1,177-kilometer pipeline would have taken 525,000 barrels of oil daily to Kitimat, BC, leading to an estimated $300 billion of economic activity over 30 years. Regulators approved the pipeline in 2014, but the Federal Court of Appeal ruled that more consultation with First Nations was due. This ruling was excuse enough for the federal government to cancel it. The Energy East project would have transported 1.1 million barrels of oil per day from Alberta and Saskatchewan to Atlantic Canada, a boon for the West and for refineries in New Brunswick. The construction jobs along the 4,500-kilometer route would have also been substantial for the $15.7 billion project. Despite submitting a thorough 30,000-page application, TC Energy abandoned the project in 2017, citing excessive regulatory hurdles, changing environmental review processes, and a slump in oil prices. Canada made it so hard to get anything done that it missed the chance to facilitate tens of billions of dollars per year in potential exports. By 2019, Bill C-48 forbade oil tankers off the northern BC coast, while C-69 empowered the government to subject more project proposals to cabinet review. Then Premier of Alberta Jason Kenney coined C-69 the No More Pipelines Act, given its foreseeable impact. In 2020, Teck Resources withdrew a $20.6 billion oil sands mine application, citing federal climate policy and investor pressure. Strangely, upstream production and downstream combustion carbon emissions are considered in approvals of Canadian energy projects but do not apply to imports from other countries. The new Clean Fuel Standard also ignores scrutiny of upstream emissions. Federal regulation tilts the playing field against Canada. These decisions left Canada unable to respond to a surge in energy demand driven by geopolitical events. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has left many countries scrambling for other sources of liquefied natural gas, LNG, as Europe reduced reliance on Russian gas after 2022. Germany, Japan, Poland, Ukraine, Greece, South Korea, the Philippines, and the EU have expressed interest in Canadian LNG. When world leaders came begging Canada for natural gas, Trudeau insisted there was no business case for East Coast LNG facilities. He argued the projects lacked long-term contracts and sufficient private investment commitments. Instead, he tried to push hydrogen, even though doing so shifts focus away from readily exportable natural gas resources. Despite Canada's clumsiness, the $40 billion LNG Canada project came to completion, led by Shell and international partners. Trudeau himself called it the largest private sector investment in Canadian history. Here, the 670-kilometer Coastal GasLink pipeline carries natural gas from Dawson Creek, BC, to the LNG Canada facility in Kitimat. Thus, from a region where oil tanker traffic was restricted, 14 million tons of LNG will go annually to Asian markets. Annually, this will add $7.4 billion to the national economy and $575 million to the BC government. BC has an estimated 93 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. Canada's economically viable proven reserves, recoverable with current technology, number only 2 trillion cubic meters, but are still worth an impressive $300 billion. Meanwhile, Canada's oil reserves, most of which are in the oil sands, number 171 billion barrels. At $70 US per barrel, or $95 Canadian, Canada's oil reserves are worth $18.8 trillion. Demand for these resources remains high. In February, Indian High Commissioner to Canada, Dinesh Patnaik, told CBC, "On energy, there is an appetite which even Canada cannot fulfill, and we are willing to buy whatever Canada is offering." Patnaik mentioned oil and natural gas. Canada produces just 1.4% of global greenhouse gas emissions and owes nothing on the climate front. Its better and more lucrative contribution would be to share its conventional energy and offset more expensive and carbon-intensive forms of production used elsewhere. But not all see it this way. In his 2021 book Values, Prime Minister Mark Carney claimed it was better for the world that some petroleum be left in the ground. Few countries would lose more than Canada by that approach. Canada does not lack resources or demand. It lacks the will to act. Until that changes, it will continue to forego growth, cede markets to others, and accept economic stagnation by choice. Please like, share, and subscribe if you appreciate this content.